Hey guys, today I think a lot of us are not present, so let me record this session and I will be sharing with you guys on the YouTube channel. So let me start with it. So our main agenda today would be data table, but to have a data table, I am launching Excel file and I am reading the data present in there. So let's launch an Excel instance. Let's open a file and I am making this particular instance invisible and I am reading this file as read only. So open that. Let's take first free row column. Yeah, take that and read from Excel activities very quickly, right? Yeah, here I would be selecting value from a range of cells. A1, sorry, A1, and end column would be first free column -1, first free row -1, and in advanced I will be turning this activity on so that it will get to know whether I am having my headers in the data table or not, right? So we already have the header. So let's save it and let's take an activity which would be closing the Excel, right? So let's close this Excel instance and we don't want to save it. So let's do that and let's run our program up to here. Let's see what our data holds. If you see, it has name, age, and salary, right? So these are the column headers and these are the data rows present. So let's jump right into Excel data by using data table activities. Let's take data table. So here if you see with respect to data table we have some 6 to 7 activities, but yeah, we'll take the very first one first, which comes under variable, right? So there is a activity which says retrieve data table column into list, right? So let's take that into canvas. So how it works is it will take a data table variable as the first parameter and it will ask you which particular column you want to be converted into list. Let's select our data table, which happens to be this Excel data, and which exact column name or index you want as a list, right? So let's take the very first one, which would be name. So I am giving 0, so it will be selecting the very first column. Let's run up to here and we will see how exactly it performs that activity. So it's already done. If you see, we have already converted our name column as a list. So if you see, we had some 4 values into that particular column and we are already getting it, right? So let's close that. Now we have in the data table section, if you see, we have create new data table, which again I will be showing you in the very last of this particular video, and this one as well. Let's take from the very third one, which says find or replace in data table, right? So let's take that into canvas and let's select the first parameter, which is data table. I'll be selecting the Excel data as my data table, and here you have, there are modes are available here for you to choose. If you see, there are 2 modes. First is find, where you will be finding kind of value in that particular Excel data table, or you are having one more activity where you can go and find and actually replace the value by something else, right? So let's go and let's select first for the very first time, right? So we are using it for the very first time, so let's choose the first one, the find one, right? Now this is by default checked all matches, so let's keep it as it is and text to find, right? So let's find unknown because we have a data present there named after unknown. Now it is asking me find using a regular expression. I want that. So let's check this one. And it is asking me again, there are two options, whether we want this particular value unknown to be found on anywhere in the Excel data table, or we want it to be found on a particular column, right? So let's take that on column, and the column index again, it is I know, because we have already seen the data table structure. We already know that it would be present in the name column, and name column happens to be on the 0th index. So let's put 0 here and let's run the entire program. So now if you see in the flow variables, we have one more data table created which says data table matches, right? So if you double click over this find or replace in data table activity, you will be seeing that it is creating a variable, right? And the variable name is data table matches. So, and it is saying the data table containing the row and column indexes for the matches. So what it does is it will find that particular value in that entire column, and it will give us on which index of row and column that value is found, right? So let's double click over this on the variable section and we will be able to see. So it is saying us that on the third row, the index, again when I am telling the third, so it would be fourth, right? Because our indexing starts from 0. So it is saying that index third of row, right, and the index 0th of column contains that data. So can we go and double check? Yeah, we should. So let's go and let's check in this Excel data. If you see this Excel data table variable, we have our unknown name present on the actually on the third row and the 0th column, right? So it is correct, right? So one activity is done. Let me show you the replace mode as well, right? So let's select find and replace. So again, I will be finding the same unknown, and it is asking me one more criteria to be filled, which is saying text to replace with, right? So let's give replaced. And again, all those things I will be keeping as it is. And let's save it. Let's run this program. And let's go and let's see what happened to the Excel data, the source data table, right? If you see now, the unknown name has been replaced by replied, right? Which we had actually given. Fair enough. Let's close this. So now there is one more thing, which is saying insert row into data table, right? So let's take that one as well. So again, it is asking a few parameters. For the very first parameter, again, it will be data table. So we'll be selecting our the data table which we have read from Excel. So we'll select that, and where exactly we want that new row to be fit in, right? So I want that in the end of data table. I think that would be fair. So let's go and let's again fill in some more parameters which it is asking. So it is asking what are the new values, right? So it is asking us that either we can give this this new value parameter, either we can fill as a data row variable or we can fill it as a list. This is saying this parameter accepts a list or data row variable where the column count should match the column count in the data table. Fair enough, right? Because if we are giving something extra, it won't be able to fit that entire data row in that the actual the previously read data table from Excel, right? So actually we don't have it right now, so we won't be able to perform this activity, right? But we can create a list and we can pass that value here, right? So I think it would be better if I am able to show you guys the list variable as well. So let's close it for now, or let's save it but disable this activity because it is having error in it, right? So let's disable it. Let's create a list. For that we are searching list. So if you see list, it is giving us an option to create new list, right? So let's drag it into canvas and I will name it after a new list. So what are the values should be present in list, right? So if you see Excel data, these values, these kind of values should be present in that list. It should be having name, age and salary. So let's add item to list, which is an activity whenever we want any item to be appended into a list, right? So we can use this activity. We can take add item. So I will be giving the first parameter again in that particular data table. You see the first column is name, so we'll be giving something with respect to name. So let's take a new guy, okay, and into list, which exact list we want this value to be fit in, right? So we want in this new list which we have created. So let's take one more value which would be age. So age should be 34. Let's give 34 and select this list. Now again we have one more value as salary. So let's take that, give value 1000 and select that list. Okay. So now first thing first, we have to check whether the values what we are trying to fill in this list has been already added into list or not, right? So let's run, or let's take display, right? I have not shown you guys display activity, so let me take display as well. So display is something used for displaying messages, or most of the guys use it for some kind of debugging, so that they can see what exactly the data variable contains or something else contains. So it is something which depends upon a particular how they're using it, right? But let me see now. I want to see the result, so I will name it after result, and the message to display would be my list. And let's run it. I'm trying to run the entire program here, and it's completed. And it is showing me that the first value is new guy, and the 34 would be the age, and 1000 should be the salary. Let's press OK. Let's remove this one, this display activity, and let's take our data table activity, which is after insert row into data table. Let's take that, select our Excel data, and it is asking me again where exactly, but by default I want it to be fit in the last of Excel data table. So the new values would be my list, which I have already created now. Let's select that, and if you see right now, this Excel data table contains only 4 rows, right? But when I am running it, and once this program gets completed, I think there should be 5, right? Now let's go ahead and let's run it. All right, let's see. It says 5 rows and 3 columns. Wow, we have done it. Let's go and let's see our variable value. Yeah, it says new guy 34 1000. We have actually done it, right? Okay, so this activity is completed. Find or replace is completed again, and now we will be taking the activity which is named after update data table item, right? So let's take that into canvas, right? So it is asking me few parameters again. So it is asking me what data table, right? So I will be taking the Excel data table again and column. So let's take the column index 0, which is name, and row, right? So in which particular row I want that change to happen, right? So let's take row second, right? And the new value. So if you see the 0th row is having the header name, right? So zeroth column is nothing but the name column, right? So let's give it a name. New. No, let's not take name. Let's take something else. Arab. What kind of name is that? But yeah, let's take that and save it. Yeah. So again, I am running this entire program again. So here we already have 5 rows, but once we are completed with this program, so we'll be having 5, and there would be a change with respect to this update data table item, right? Because we are changing on the 0th index, we are changing something. So if you see, the 0th index would be the name column where the first name was Amir. So let's see whether it is getting changed by Arav or not. Let's run the entire program. And let's click over this Excel data table. No. So yeah, it has actually made the changes on the second index of row, right? I think we have taken second index. Did we? Yes. Actually, we have taken second index, and that is why it has made the changes over the second row. If you see, the 0th index was name column, and the second index of row, if you see, that contained another some another name earlier, but now it is named after Arab. So yeah, this activity is done. Let's take delete row from data table. So again, this is, I think, pretty easy, and it is easily understandable as well. So if you see the parameters, it is asking the data table, Excel data. For now I will give, and I will want some row to be deleted, right? So it will ask us which exact index you want to be deleted. So when it is asking index, it is asking us row index. So let's take 2, because the new value which we have given Arab, I want that to be deleted. I want only 4 rows to be present. So let's save that and let's see what it does. Yeah, so now we have only 4 rows and 3 columns. So let's double click over that, and if you see, the row which contained Arab is now gone, right? So we have completed our activity. Let's close this one. So now again you would ask me that why I have not shown you this activity. Just create new data table. So let's go ahead and let's create a new data table. Let's take that into canvas. Now it is asking me to edit it, right? So by default it is having 0 rows and 0 columns, right? So we'll go and we will edit it. So by default, if you see, the 0th index is already having one empty row, but it is giving you an option to have columns, right? So if we press over this, we'll be adding new row. If we press over this, we'll be adding a new column, right? So we want 3 columns. So let's take one more and let's change the name of it. Let's take and let's give the name, age, and salary as our previous Excel data table variable, right? So let's take similar to that, and what we will do is we will save it. So now our structure is already created, right? But by default what happens is whenever you are creating a data table, right, the first row, the zeroth index row automatically gets created. But whenever you are performing any kind of insertion of data into this data table, right, I will give you a suggestion to delete that row for the very first operations whenever you are doing insertion, so that it should not be having any blank, right? Because whenever you are updating something, right, it will be creating a row here and then it will be updating. It won't be updating here unless and until you are giving this index to be filled, right? So I will give you that it will be a lot easier if you are deleting this particular row and then start insertion, right? If you are doing any kind of insertion, first thing first, make sure that this row is deleted. So let's not confuse you guys a lot. Let's save it. Yeah, and what we will do is we will take insert row into data table, right? Again, I am performing insertion, right? I am trying to insert something. So the data table named would be, if you see the data table name, what have I named it after? I didn't name it anything. So let's go back and let's see. Yeah, so by default it is naming it data table. So let's rename it created data table. Yeah, just to have some kind of reference to the kind of activity which we are doing. So let's move it, right? And now it is renamed after created data table, and let's insert a row into that. But again, you remember when I told you that first to delete that particular row, so I will take this delete row from data table first, and I will take this zeroth one and I will give the index as 0 because I want that particular row to be deleted. Let's save that and let's insert now. Insert row from into data table, right? So let's take that and select create data table into this data table parameter, and where exactly I want that row to be fit in. So it is asking before row index, but I don't have any data there, so I will be updating in the end of data table. Let's give the value. Should we? Let's select list, the new list, and we'll be saving this particular activity. Let's run it from very start and let's see what this created data table contains after the run of program. Let's double press and you see it is working fine. Our data table is getting updated. So I think I have already covered each and everything with respect to data table now, and yeah, that's about it. That's about data table activities with respect to Power Automate Desktop. There is one more big announcement. There is one more announcement from my side, that there is a company Learning Technologies which is giving me 100 Udemy coupons for their course Microsoft Power Automate Desktop, and you all will be getting it, right? Because we already have very less people enrolled in this particular course, so I am planning to give you all